Hey, it's Liberty, and today I'm going to be wrapping up the One Tree Hill challenge that I made earlier this year. I had fun doing this, rewatching old episodes and trying to do all of the prompts. If you like this, do give it a thumbs up. I make videos all about books, history, personality, etc. So do check those out and subscribe if you want to. If you participated in this challenge, let me know how you did. I am fascinated to find out if anyone actually did this with me. So I'm going to get straight into the prompts. The first prompt was to read a novel by Steinbeck. And I have to say, I failed. I really tried. I tried East of Eden. I tried The Winter of Our Discontent. I just couldn't get into his writing style, which, I mean, I'm nothing like Lucas Scott. So hopefully that's, says good things. So, sometimes that happens, you just can't get into someone's writing, and that's fine. So the second prompt is a book with the It's Always Been You trope. And for that, I read Lucky Caller. Now, Lucky Caller is a YA novel, which is all about our main character, Nina. She's in her senior year of high school, and she is taking this radio class because she thinks it's going to be easy, and it is anything but that. They end up splitting into these small groups and having to put on a radio show weekly. And the people she ends up in a group with, one of them is her sort of neighbour / old best friend, Jamie. And she had come to the conclusion she was going to spend the rest of her life ignoring him because they sort of have a weird history. In their attempt to get the best grade possible, they end up riling up two sort of fandoms of musicians, and it's quite something. You also get to see Nina's family and her relationship with her sisters, Jamie and his family, and honestly I really enjoyed particularly her stepfather as a character, or her stepfather-to-be. Nina and Jamie's history was really well done. The flashbacks get threaded throughout the narrative. Honestly, I read this via audiobook, and I would highly recommend this because I think it's the best way to experience it. You basically get extracts of her father's radio show because her father is a radio presenter. And obviously that's best delivered, audibly. So I would highly recommend this book. I mean, I give it 3.25 stars, I think, on Storygraph. The third prompt is for a book set in a small town or village. And for this, I chose Heritage by Vita Sackville-West. This is actually the first book that I tabbed. And I think this really added to my reading experience for sure. I'm going to try and do this sort of moving forward for every book that I sort of read in print now. It's told in a really interesting way. So the narrator of this book is someone who I don't think you ever get their name that I can remember. But he meets this guy called Mallory, this English man. They're both English, and they are abroad. And Mallory is sort of opening his heart a little bit to this basically stranger. They've not known each other for very long. And he's telling him all about the time he spent working on a farm in Kent. And he stayed with this family called the Penistons, and he was particularly fascinated with their daughter Ruth and her life and her personality and the, I guess, Spanish Roma ancestry that she sort of has. And he sort of uses that as a way to explain a lot of, the things that she does and bits of her personality. And also a cousin of hers, Ruth and her cousin have this sort of weird push-pull, romantic relationship in itself. It's just ew. But he often talks about their sort of shared wild bond. There's a lot of talk about Englishness and exotic genes and stuff, which is a little weird, but once you know that it's based on Vita's own family history, it's sort of a little bit, it's less weird, but it's still weird coming from this guy as a narrator, as a sort of, whatever he is. Part 2 of this novel shows our narrator going to the Penistons' farm and interacting with these characters that he'd heard about firsthand. He realises things that Mallory hasn't, and he tries to sort of put his own little schemes in motion in a really harmless way. He is really harmless and he's really nice. He, for some reason, he has an injury that, means he can't participate in the First World War. So Mallory's fighting and Ruth's cousin's fighting, and he's there with the family. And so he's, experiencing their day-to-day and Ruth's relationship with all the people around her. Part 3 is then set 10 years after this. and Mallory is recounting to our narrator about what has happened to him within the last 10 years and, you know, him going back to Kent and how the whole story wraps up. There are some parts of it that really made me think. It's an outrage on tact to say to your century what will be self-evident to the next. Therefore, we continue to hate our enemy and love our country. Mistaken ideals both. Mallory has a really sort of analytic personality. You know, he doesn't really pick up on things very easily sometimes, but also he talks so poetically, things like that, that he's a really fascinating character to read. I mean, for example, I shall no longer be forced to grant undue proportion to the nightmare. Until now, it has made black night of my days, but tomorrow it will recede like a fog before the sun, and I shall dwell in the crystal light of the mountain tops. This story is based on Vita's own family and ancestry, and her love for Kent and its people really shines through. It's just, the descriptions that you get of the Weald of Kent is just gorgeous. I want to go there. I love Vita Sackville-West, and it would be remiss of me not to mention that there are moments in this novel where I go, that's a very odd, slightly dodgy description that you've just done of someone, but you know, she's not here to defend herself, so I can only assume that she's putting certain words into her characters' mouths or whatever, or into their heads that are not hers, but I don't know. Oh god, yeah. You can tell this is her first novel. You can tell that she has a lot of potential, and I read The Edwardians by her, but I'm really excited to read more because, you know, she is the reason why Virginia Woolf was able to write all of her amazing novels. Vita's novels were really popular at the time, and so they brought in the money for the press. And yeah, it's entertaining. I enjoyed myself, and it was beautifully written, and I want to read more of her. The fourth prompt is a book with a complex father-son relationship, and for this, I picked A Nobleman's Guide to Shipwrecks and Scandals. Now, this is the third book. I'm assuming it's the last in the trilogy of the Montague siblings trilogy, and this time we're centering on Adrian, who's the youngest, and this is 18 years after the events of the last book. He's grown up thinking he was an only child. He's his father's heir, and when his mother dies, he's given this spyglass, like a half of a spyglass. He's determined to find out what this spyglass means, and is it somehow linked to his mother's death and the shipwreck she was in years before. While he's looking for answers, he meets his brother, Monty, and, you know, they end up working together to find out what the hell is going on. I really enjoyed this. Adrian is a really great character. The depictions of how his anxiety sort of affects his daily life, I thought was really well done. He's set to inherit his father's seat in Parliament, but at the same time, you know, he's writing political pamphlets that are quite really progressive, and his fiancée is also, you know, very politically active and progressive, and that interplay is, you know, he's hiding his true feelings from his father, and that conflict was really interesting. The relationship between Adrian and the characters that we know and love, and also new characters that we've never seen before, I really enjoyed that, all of that interplay, and it was great to see Monty and Percy again, and particularly Felicity. I really missed her, and it was great to see what they had all been up to in those last 18 years. This book was a delight. I am really sad there's not going to be any more, probably, from these siblings, but I highly recommend this whole trilogy. If anybody knows anything to the contrary about the series, do let me know. I'll be very excited if we get more adventures with these siblings. The next prompt is for a book that is featuring a writer, and for this I read November 9th by Colleen Hoover. Now, November 9th is basically like one day. You follow these two characters every November 9th for a few years. Ben and Fallon meet at a restaurant, and it is the day that Fallon is going to be spending her last day in LA, and then she's going to be moving across the country to New York. And they end up meeting and spending Fallon's last day in LA together, and they have this sort of intense connection, and it leads them to sort of make this pact that every November 9th they will meet up at the same restaurant and spend the day together. Ben is a writer, and he's determined for them to sort of live out the perfect plot for him to make a book out of. Fallon survived a fire, and it's left her with like facial scars and scars on her body, and it's completely affected the way that she sees herself, her, you know, confidence and everything like that. The connection she has with Ben, it sort of helps her to overcome that. And for more of my opinions about this book, I have made a whole video where I read 3 Colleen Hoover books, and I talked in great detail about my opinions about them and about her as a writer. That is coming soon, so do look forward to that. I'm not going to say much more about this book other than I enjoyed it up to a point. The final prompt is a high school drama, and for this, I've read by the book. Mary Porter Malcolm is the main character of this novel, and she is forced to sort of switch schools at the last minute, and the 2 people that she knows from her previous school just completely ghost her, and she is sort of alone until she meets this group of girls, and she sort of intervenes because she sees one of them potentially making a mistake and trusting a guy she calls like a Vronsky, because she's obsessed with 19th century literature, and she sort of uses these books and these plots and these men to guide her through life. With her new friends, she creates a scoundrel survival guide where she basically helps her school friends sort of navigate high school dating by, you know, giving examples from literature of like walking red flags. She ends up not taking her own advice though, and sort of has to reevaluate her whole system that she's created for herself. It's so cute the way that Mary has sort of adopted certain phrases and things like that into her and speech patterns into her sort of everyday to-day life. Some would call it pretentious, but I feel like that's the sort of thing teenagers do, you know? They find something that they love and they, you know, incorporate that into their personality, whether that's for a little bit or in general. She's also a Tenant of Wildfell Hall enthusiast, which I massively appreciate. Her family is really interesting. She has some older sisters who are twins, and they run this theatre company, and her parents both professors at a university, and they do this like quiz with all the other different departments, and that was really nice. It's quite a weird, wonderful family that she has. I won't spoil too much about the love interest in this novel, but I really like the progression of their relationship. Did I think he needed a little bit more of a personality? Yes, I would like to have seen that developed a bit more, but it's cute. I'm happy for Mary. I enjoyed this book. I liked her dynamic with her friends and her sort of fear about her friends leaving her and, you know, her not being good enough for her friends and that insecurity that she has. I think that's really relatable. This is a novel of preconceived notions, misunderstandings, and a cautionary tale against reading too many novels. So 5 out of 6 prompts, that was not too bad. That was my One Tree Hill Reading Challenge wrap up. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Like I said, if you took part in this challenge with me, let me know. And what books did you read? I'm curious. And did you make it through all the prompts? Did you read the Steinbeck? If you enjoyed, do give it a thumbs up. And I make videos all about books, history, personality, etc. So do check those out and subscribe if you want to. Happy reading.